Next, Cami Benincosa will come up. She's a Ewing Sarcoma, and those of you who might not know about cancer, Ewing Sarcoma is a very, very difficult one. There's no standard treatment. They run you through regimen after regimen, hoping to find what works. I'm really glad that Cami is here because it did work. So I'm looking forward to hearing. Where did she go? Where are you, Cami? Oh, thank you. I had you over there for a second. Okay. So anyway, Cami Benincosa, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm not a public speaker. This microphone is way too high. But I'm excited that I get to wear my sash tonight. It's the second time I've worn it since the day of my last chemo. If I don't look up at you, it's so I don't cry, so I'll do my best. So I always knew that I wanted to be a nurse. Nursing was in my soul, and I knew I'd be amazing at it. I married my high school sweetheart and love of my life, Adam, almost 25 years ago. I decided early on to put the nursing dream on hold while I focused on my number one dream, raising my kids. So at the ripe old age of 33, when my youngest daughter, Kyler, started kindergarten and my oldest daughter, Taylor, started 7th grade, I enrolled in my first college class. It took me 5 years to get through nursing school, but with the support of my family, I had finally done it. All my dreams had come true. I was blessed with a loving husband and kids. I was finally working full-time as a pediatric nurse and had been for 9 months. I loved it every second, and I was right. I was pretty amazing at it. It's too early to start getting emotional. I had it all, the dream job, the amazing and supportive husband, and great kids. Things had finally started to calm down after I graduated, and we were getting into a good routine. It was Adam's turn to start college to pursue his dreams finally. Life was really good until it wasn't. I was at work in the med room when I got the call. Tears streaming down my face as I hung up the phone. It was official. I had cancer. All that I had worked for was going to be put on hold for an entire year, while I endured the rigorous inpatient treatment for Ewing sarcoma. It's a very rare pediatric soft tissue cancer that's more prominent in boys who are between the ages of 14 and 19. I had just turned 39 years old. It was extremely rare to get this as an adult. Fortunately, I was lucky that it hadn't spread to other...
There you go.
Thanks.
Sorry, the back.
Okay. Oh, then it sounds so loud. Fortunately, I was lucky that it hadn't spread to other parts of my body, but the tumor was pretty big. 5.5 centimeters, they tell me. They don't usually officially stage Ewing's because it's not known exactly what type of cells or how many are hiding in your body before treatment or after. Unfortunately, I will never be considered cured. I will just have the NED label, which stands for no evidence of disease. I needed to quit my job, the dream job I had just started only 9 months before, the one I sacrificed everything for and worked so incredibly hard for. The doctor said that chemo was very intense and I would not be able to return to work for at least a year. This alone was pure devastation for me. He said I would need surgery and possibly radiation, depending on if the chemo worked. Chemo would be at least 9 months, and it would be all inpatient. I would have to leave my family every 2 weeks to stay at the hospital for 2 to 5 days at a time. Due to Ewing's being such an aggressive cancer, I was only able to have 10 more days of normal before I started my journey. On November 3rd, 2014, I was scheduled to check into Huntsman Cancer Institute for the first of many inpatient stays so I could get my port and have my first of 14 rounds of chemotherapy. Chemo was manageable for the first 6 rounds, mostly due to my nurses at Huntsman. They were amazing. They did all they could do to make things bearable and comfortable for me each time I stayed. After the 6 rounds, I had a scan, and they said that my tumor had pretty much disappeared. Only a small pin-sized spot remained that they thought was just tissue, and they could easily remove it. They did that, and it felt good to officially have the cancer removed from my body. Unfortunately, because they were concerned of small cells all throughout my body, I still had to have 8 more rounds of chemo. I was rewarded with 6 weeks off chemo at that time, 3 before the surgery and 3 after. During that time, my eyelashes finally fell out, which I hated, but I started to feel a little like myself again. I'd gotten to the habit of taking Epsom salt baths to relieve some of my bone and muscle pain. Unfortunately, doing this before my surgical wound healed all the way wasn't the best idea I've ever had, and I ended up getting an infection. I was super sick. On March 4th, the evening before my 21st wedding anniversary, Adam and I went to the emergency room at the University of Utah. I was an emotional wreck because I knew this infection was going to kill me like I had feared the entire time I had been getting treatment. I wasn't afraid of the chemo or the cancer, but I thought for sure an infection was going to be what got me. It's funny when you go to the emergency room while you're being treated for cancer, they don't really know what to do with you. None of my labs looked normal. They don't dare to access my port because they don't ever do it, and they made me suffer while they stuck my dehydrated body over and over to get an IV started. I endured that emergency room for 8 hours. I was done. I was frustrated, scared, and emotional. By this time, it was 2 a.m. in the morning, our anniversary, and I just could not stop crying. I begged and begged them to let me go to Huntsman. My nurses knew me over there, and they would take good care of me. Finally, when it was time to go, I was relieved and exhausted. Adam was too. They wheeled me into my room at Huntsman, and we were so very touched to see that it had been decorated with hearts and red garland and signs that said happy anniversary everywhere. They were having a waffle potluck and offered to whip us up some. What a sweet and personal gesture. We were so touched by their sentiment that I was able to stop crying for a minute and eat an anniversary waffle. Nothing ever tasted so good at 2 a.m. I can only hope to do something as powerful for one of my patients someday. It really touched my heart and gave me the strength to keep going. All throughout my treatment, my nurses were patient, kind, compassionate, and understanding with me. They anticipated my needs and were readily available when I needed them. Because I was inpatient every 2 weeks for up to 5 days at a time, getting chemo around the clock, I got to know them well. They became my friends, my confidants, and my support. I knew that they had my back and would advocate for me as much as they could in every situation. Even though I was sick and dreary, sometimes lethargic, and mostly focusing on myself and my illness, I continued to grow, learning how to be a better nurse by their example. I knew that when I was finally able to go back to work, I wanted to have an impact on my patients, as they did on me. There are many side effects of chemo that people don't even know about, and of course, I had all of those. My fingernails and toenails turned black and died, then fell out. I had serious digestive issues that gave me grief daily, and I could hardly walk due to the neuropathy in my feet. They felt like I had slammed them on concrete for hours and hours and were bruised. It was rough, some days unbearable. Many times I ended up being stuck on the couch because I was in too much pain and too weak to walk up the stairs. I ended up needing over 10 bags of blood and a few bags of platelets, gallons of fluids, and lots of medications to get through the last 5 months of treatment. I felt like I barely survived, and I wouldn't have if it hadn't been for my straight-up positivity, my amazing support system, great caregivers, and finally some good luck. Also, my husband, who was my hero with his never-ending support and squishy love. It was hard for him to feel helpless, to sleep alone, and to have his partner, his companion, hurting and not being able to do anything to help her. I honestly don't know how he did it. I always tell him his job was way harder than mine throughout the whole ordeal. It was hell, but by the grace of God, I survived to tell my story. I've now been NED for 3 years and 9 months. I just graduated from having scans every 3 months to having them every 6. I will do this for the next 2 years, then I will have scans every year for the rest of my life. I will never totally be free from cancer. You see, besides the constant worry of it coming back, that can sometimes eat my soul away, there are plenty of physical pains that remain. I have constant chronic pain. I have terrible arthritis of my joints, tons of bone and muscle pain, and all over aging that I feel every single day. It has gotten better, but it will be a persistent reminder that I will forever have to live with. It's weird to say, but cancer hasn't always been bad. If asked, I'd probably tell you I wouldn't change going through this experience. I know my story isn't over, and each day I have on this earth is a gift. I need to make the very best life because it's my life, and it's the only one I've got. I relish in every experience, big or small, good and bad. I appreciate carbs and comfort, warm fuzzy socks, and a cool breeze while the sun shines down on my face. I try and feed my cherished relationships with availability and support. I'm grateful to occasionally brightening someone's day with a small gesture or act of kindness. I squeeze a bit tighter and hold on just a little longer when I hug my loved ones. My journey isn't through. I've chosen to look at this experience with positivity and try to find ways that I can help others by giving back. One way is through my love of nursing. I was able to return to work almost 1 year to the day that I left. Currently, I'm a pediatric adult LTAC nurse, and some of my patients have long-term chronic issues that make life extremely hard to cope with. Through my journey, I have grown and learned to be a better nurse. During my treatment, I was shown such kindness, empathy, and compassion by my nurses. I want to be that way with my patients. Every day, I try to put myself in their situation, remembering what it felt like to be a patient who felt helpless. I stay and talk a little longer. I make eye contact and hold their hand and let them know that I understand what they are going through. I advocate for them to doctors and nurse practitioners who don't know them the way that I do. I do all that I can to be genuine, offering positivity and time, trying to make a difference in their story. It's important to me that I help them heal or die with grace, dignity, and peace. Nursing isn't all about what you learn in books. It's 80% personal. I don't tell all of my patients that I had cancer, but I do feel like my experience helped me have a greater understanding and compassion for what they might be going through. I know what it's like to be sick and to not have an end in sight. I know what it's like to feel hopeless and exhausted, dealing with chronic pain day in and day out. It seems comforting to some of my patients when I share my story and let them know that I know what they are feeling emotionally. It helps them to know that they have a nurse who can empathize with them and who will fight for them to make it a little bit more bearable. It's comforting to know that having cancer wasn't in vain. I learned a lot about myself and how to be a better person, wife, mom, and nurse. I'm a survivor, and my patients are too. I'm grateful to be in a position to bring peace and contentment to others who might be experiencing something similar. On my last day of work before I started chemo, I came home to a note that my husband put on my mirror. It remains there still 4 years later. It has since become my mantra and something I say in my head and to others often. It's a quote from a great movie, The Shawshank Redemption. Hope is a good thing, maybe the best of things, and no good thing ever dies. I have hope. I am hope. I am positive. I am a survivor. My name is Cami Benincosa, and I am a cancer warrior. I stand here before you guys wearing this sash because I'm a queen. I'm a survivor and a rock star. I fought with everything I had and everything I didn't have, and I won the battle. I can do hard things. I did hard things, and cancer ain't got nothing on me.